Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully, you are getting ready to travel and you're going to travel safe, first of all, and then you're going to travel smart. Okay, so we're going to talk about some travel accident insurance and protections just to bring you up to speed. One thing I want to tell you is always use a premium travel credit card. Okay. Now, once again, as I mentioned in the video about the rental car, right, through your premium travel credit card, you do not want to book travel with this. Okay, it's just a debit card. You don't want to book travel with this. Okay. And you don't want to book travel with this. And I can talk about these cards because they're my personal cards. You don't want to book travel with just a regular Visa that doesn't have any travel protections. This one doesn't even come with rental car secondary coverage. So you don't want to book travel with this. You want to book travel with a premium credit card. It's my personal card, and I can talk about my personal coverages under my card, right? So this is the Chase Sapphire Reserve. It's little brother's the Chase Sapphire Preferred. Most of this is going to apply to the Built MasterCard, World MasterCard. It'll also apply to the American Express Platinum or various American Express cards. And you have to check your specific card for what travel protections or benefits come with your card. Another thing you'll need to do, particularly if you live in certain states where your state restricts or determines what protections a credit card company can offer or benefits they can offer. So you'll need to check specific. You can call the credit card company and you can call the conveyance in which you're going to be traveling, the airlines, the cruise line, the bus line, and you can try and get as much additional information online as you can or directly through those particular parties. And then you can call Chase itself. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about travel accident insurance under the benefits that I'm reading from my own benefits under the Chase Sapphire Reserve credit card. Okay. Now I'll tell you right off the bat, when you talk about travel accident insurance, I'm going to read to you part of the first paragraph. It says the card holder and immediate family members are covered when the card holder's name is embossed on an eligible card issued in the United States, and the card holder charges all or a portion of the scheduled airline fare to his or her credit card account and / or rewards programs associated with the account. Now, this is the part that's good. Immediate family member means an individual with any of the following relationships to the cardholder: spouse and parents thereof, sons and daughters, including adopted children and stepchildren, parents, including step-parents, brothers and sisters, grandparents and grandchildren, aunts or uncles, nieces or nephews, and domestic partner and parents thereof, including domestic partners and spouses of any individual of this definition. Immediate family member also includes legal guardians or wards. So that's one reason why you want to purchase your airline ticket, your cruise line ticket with a premium travel credit card, and in particularly this Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is what I would do. And that's what I'm telling you, okay, what I would do. Now, in course, based on a few decades of insurance defense work, working for the carriers directly and handling litigated claims, few decades. So this is my experience with it as I look at these benefits. I'm just going to give you break through some of the language here that they may use. Now, here are the benefits. Okay, we talked about who's covered. Now let's talk about the benefits. What are the benefit amounts? Coverage, common carrier travel, accident insurance. Okay, so if you're traveling on a airplane or a bus, Greyhound, or even a tour bus operation, as long as it's legally licensed to operate in that fashion, cruise ship, right? Things like that. And then you can call Chase to make sure that this particular operator would fit under the term of a common carrier travel. Now, let me give you what the definition is of a common carrier travel. It says, in the context of Chase Sapphire benefits, common carrier travel refers to any commercially licensed motorized form of transportation that is available to the public for hire, such as airlines, trains, buses, and cruise lines, period. It is a key term in understanding the scope of travel insurance and other benefits offered by Chase Sapphire cards, as it dictates which types of travel are covered under those benefits. Okay, so that's the definition of a common carrier, which the majority of you will probably be using: an airline, a train, a bus, or a cruise line. Okay, so this just covers that group. Any of you doing any kind of special exotic transportation, you getting helicoptered in, I don't think that applies. But you can look at the definition of airlines and see whether or not a commercially licensed helicopter would apply. Now, what's the loss of life benefit per insured person? $1 million. Okay. Then there's an additional coverage, 24-hour travel accident insurance. It also covers all the individuals that we talked about above, up to $100,000. So the first 24 hours, $100,000 is really what we're talking about here for each individual. After that, that's when the $1 million will kick in as a potential loss of life benefit. Now, some of the losses that this policy will pay for, or this benefit will pay for, is it says the policy will pay the following percentages of the loss of life benefit amount for specific losses, right? So it's not just death, it's other losses that's covered. And I'll read you what they have here. Loss of speech and loss of hearing. Loss of speech or hearing and loss of one hand, foot, or sight of one eye. Loss of both hands. Loss of both feet. Loss of sight of both eyes. Loss of a combination of any two of a loss of hand, loss of foot, or loss of sight of one eye. Okay, I probably lost some of you, but here's what you need to know. File your claim if anything catastrophic like this has occurred. Some of you don't really understand the benefits that come. It's almost like an additional life insurance policy. And if you purchase your airline ticket with your Chase Sapphire Reserve, or preferred, but we're going to talk about the Reserve, Chase Sapphire Reserve. You book it with your Chase Sapphire Reserve. You pay for it with your Chase Sapphire Reserve. And that's what you use. And then something should happen. Now you have a claim to be filed by your heirs. Obviously, in the case of a fatality, it will be your spouse or the children or parents who would be filing a claim. But in the case of a loss of speech, loss of hearing, someone will have to help you do that, even though you'll still be with us, but you've suffered this catastrophic and tragic injury with a loss of speech or hearing or sight. Now, they reduce it to 50% of a benefit amount if you lose one hand, one foot, one eye, and the loss of speech and loss of hearing. They reduce it to 25% if you lose a thumb and index finger of the same hand. So these are situations that if they come up, I want you to file your claim, okay? If you have these premium credit cards, and even if you don't know what you have in your wallet, file your claim. Just file your claim, okay? I know some of you got 10 or 12 credit cards. You don't know what benefits they cover. And I understand that. File your claim. Contact them, file the claim. Find out who the benefit administrator is. Pull up the name of your credit card. Just pull it up online. Go to the travel accident insurance or benefits. And in the table of contents, it'll tell you where you can find this information. I'll give you an example. Under my Chase Sapphire Reserve, which is a Visa Infinite, it has travel, protection, benefits. And it also covers, tells you about purchases and what kind of warranty protection. But on page 8, there's the emergency evacuation and transportation we're going to talk about. Page 11, emergency medical and dental benefit on page 11. The extended warranty on page 15. Now, I'm not going to talk about baggage delay and lost luggage and all of that, because that's pretty basic. You understand that. Just file the claim, call them, file the claim, do whatever they tell you. I want to talk about this big stuff, the emergency evacuation transportation. On page 8, I'm going to come back to that. Emergency medical and dental benefit, page 11. And then all the way down on page 25 is travel accident insurance. And then on page 30, travel and emergency assistance. Okay. And then on page 33, trip cancellation, interruption insurance, and page 40, trip delay reimbursement. Okay. So file your claim on all of those. There's certain conditions, has to be over so many hours, things like that. I'm just going to talk about things related to the medical. Now, at first, you should notice that the travel accident insurance and the travel and emergency assistance, but particularly the travel accident insurance, is all the way down on page 25, right? And I can just give you my opinion on this. The reason is because they're viewing this, I think, more or less like a life insurance policy. You know, in the event of something like this happening, if it happens to you while on a plane, train, or bus or cruise line, there may also be some protections you have just with purchasing your ticket that comes with being a passenger. But those may just be some generic coverages that, you know, if something happens to you, you're on our cruise ship, here's what we'll do, you know, just as a goodwill offer. But in this case, because you purchase your conveyance with this credit card, you purchase your plane ticket with this credit card, and something catastrophic or tragic happens, you can file this claim. Your heirs can file this claim for this benefit. So the key here is understanding that you may have claims you have not filed. And so file the claim. Let them tell you no. If there's a dispute, then you're going to have to seek some legal assistance, but file your claims, okay? Now, as we go down here, they talk about the losses that are covered under the common carrier travel accident benefit. We talked about those already, but this is the part that you'll be interested in. It says here, the common carrier travel accident insurance provides coverage for a broad range of losses, including accidental loss of life, limb, sight, speech, or hearing that occur while riding as a passenger in, entering, or exiting any common carrier. Coverage also extends to cover you while you are riding as a passenger, entering or exiting any conveyance licensed to carry the public for hire, or any courtesy transportation provided without a specific charge and while traveling to and from the airport, terminal, or station, immediately preceding the departure of the scheduled common carrier on which you have purchased passage, or B, immediately following the arrival of the scheduled common carrier on which you were a passenger, or while at the airport, station, or terminal at the beginning or end of a common carrier covered trip. So basically, when you're on the plane, when you're in the taxi cab, when you are in the cruise ship, you're on the train, you're on the airport shuttle, and something catastrophic happens because you're in the mode of traveling to take a trip. And since this is travel insurance, that's kind of what the trigger will be, right? You're in the taxi cab on your way to the airport to take your trip and something catastrophic happens. You can file your claim here, okay? Now it says here what losses are covered. We already talked about that. Very similar to the 24 hours, just that the amount is reduced. $100,000 for the 24 hour, $1 million for once you're on your trip. Now here's one of the things here that they say is not covered. It does not cover you entering or exiting any aircraft while acting or training as a pilot or crew member. This exclusion does not apply to passengers who temporarily perform pilot or crew functions in a life-threatening emergency. So you are a, maybe you're a pilot, but that's not your main job, and you're not flying the plane, but you have to take over, and something happened and you got injured while you're performing. Maybe something happened to the pilots and you know how to fly, so you come in and try and help, but something happens to you, you're injured, you can file your claim, okay? So, but this would not cover pilots who happen to have a Chase Sapphire Reserve while they're working. So they want to make that clear that it excludes them because that's what they're doing for their job, and they'll be covered under worker compensation or whatever benefits that come from being a pilot with that particular airline. So that's really the thrust of this travel accident insurance. It's acting more or less like a life insurance or an AD&D policy, an accidental death and dismemberment policy. That's basically what it sounds like. And of course, how you file your claim, call the benefit administrator within 20 days of the date of your accident or loss, or as soon as reasonably possible. So they realize that 20 days may not be enough, so as reasonably possible. Okay. And then they say, when we receive notice of the claim within 15 days, we'll send you or your designee forms for giving proof of the loss to us. Your designee or you should send us written description of the loss. This written description should include information detailing the occurrence and extent of the loss for which the claim is made. Okay. So you give the fact pattern of what occurred, right? And I was leaving the hotel in the hotel shuttle bus, and another car ran into us and it caused me to have a catastrophic injury, which I went to the hospital for, and I lost a hand, a foot, a leg. And so you give the fact patterns so they can understand what occurred, of course, get all the documentation, reports, file claims with everyone. File claim with the hotel shuttle van, file claim with Chase, file claim with your own personal insurance, life insurance, medical insurance through your job, file your claims. Okay. Now, let's go up here to back to page 8. And this is going to be the emergency evacuation and transportation. The reason I think personally they put it on page 8 because this one is the one that comes up the most, right? My personal view about insurance companies, when they offer a lot of money, that's when they know they're not going to be paying. They have actuarials that tell them, okay, this is how many people that fly in the United States, and this is how many times we've had to pay this claim, right? So, so that's why they offer a certain amount, similar with your life insurance or your AD&D policies that you may have, right? Now, they put this particular coverage here on page 8, which we're going to talk about a little bit. The emergency evacuation and the emergency medical, because this is the part that's important. Actually, it's on page 10 on my tablet here. Emergency evacuation and transportation. The emergency evacuation and transportation benefit will cover necessary emergency evacuation and transportation expenses up to $100,000 when you, your spouse, or eligible children under 19 of age and 26 of age if enrolled as a full-time student at an accredited university. If any of those are injured or become ill while traveling, resulting in emergency evacuation. You are eligible if your name is embossed on an eligible card issued in the United States and you charge any portion of your covered trip to your credit card account and or rewards programs associated with your account. This benefit also includes repatriation of remains coverage. So basically, as we talked earlier with the travel accident insurance basically being a life insurance policy or AD&D policy, in the event that someone succumbs to some type of injury or what have you, and you file your claim with Chase, you'd have that $1 million in coverage to try to pursue, and then they're going to give you some repatriation coverage to get the body back to the United States. But I'm going to read to you what that amount is. It's only for repatriation of remains. If you died during the course of the covered trip, the benefit administrator will pay the reasonable covered expenses incurred up to $1,000 to return your body to your home country of residence. Covered expenses include, but are not limited to, expenses for embalming, cremation, a coffin, and transportation. Now, here's one of the other things that you need to understand about this emergency evacuation and transportation. Okay. Because I hear a lot of people talk about this on YouTube. They don't get into the minutia because they don't understand the minutia. Okay. And so I'm going to try and help break it down for you a little bit. And I appreciate what everyone's done, but this is something I haven't heard, and I watched a lot of them and researched the matter. And I'm going straight from my own personal benefits with my own personal Chase Sapphire Reserve. Okay. Now, here's what it says here in the benefits, right, in your terms and conditions. And here's the benefits section. It's basically explaining this benefit. Please pay attention to these conditions of the emergency evacuation and transportation benefit. The duration of a covered trip cannot be less than 5 days or more than 60 days. Okay, so let's stop right there. So in order for them to cover this trip, it's going to be more than 5 days. Okay, can't be less than 5 days. So on the 5th day, you're good. And you're good until the 60th day. Now, you know how insurance works. So you basically want to plan for this to help you in the case of the 6th day through the 59th day. Because where I'm at in Southeast Asia, we're a day ahead. So, you know, from 12 to 15 hours, depending on where you are in the States. So typically we're a day ahead. You can say for all intents and purposes, we're a day ahead. Not a full 24 hours, but basically 12 to 15. So you're looking at falling within, I would say, 6 to 59 days to be safe. Okay, here's the next thing to pay attention to. The covered trip must be in excess of 100 miles from the eligible person's residence. When a cardholder's mailing address is in the state of New York, this one is 100 or more mile requirement does not apply to New York laws. So New York, you're different in just about every case under these benefits. But for the rest of us, the covered trip must be in excess of 100 miles from our house. Okay, from where your mailing address is. You got to be 100 miles from there. Now, it says here, this benefit does not apply to the extent that trade or economic sanctions or other laws or regulations prohibit the provision of the insurance, including but not limited to the payment of claims. So if you're in a certain country, perhaps, or going to a certain country where there are economic sanctions or some type of trade sanctions or barriers, or any law that would prohibit this credit card company from providing this benefit to you, then it's not going to work. Now, it says this benefit is payable on an excess basis over and above any payment due from any other valid or collectible insurance or any other form of reimbursement payable to those responsible for the loss. Okay. So your emergency evacuation is going to cover you after 5 days, and it's only going to cover you up through the 60th day. Okay. And I say 6 days to 59 just to be safe. It's going to provide emergency evacuation coverage up to $100,000. It's broad in what it will cover. Okay. Basically, if you become sick or ill or hospitalized, you're going to have coverage for this on an emergency basis. This benefit does not seem to preclude any pre-existing injuries. And that makes sense, because if you're well enough to travel and you get to your location after 5 days, right, then they're giving you the benefit of the doubt here, in the sense that if you could make it more than 100 miles from your home, and then after 5 days you become ill, then this provision of emergency evacuation coverage kicks in. And so you should use it. If you need it, file your claim. Now, here's some of the things that are covered. Covered expenses. It says what expenses are covered under the emergency evacuation and transportation benefit. Covered expenses include transportation, medical services, and medical supplies that are necessary in connection with your emergency evacuation. All transportation arrangements must be recommended by the attending physician or required by the standard regulations of the conveyance transporting you, and arranged and approved in advance, now this is the big one, by the benefit administrator in consultation with a legally licensed physician who certified that emergency evacuation is warranted due to the severity of the injury or illness. Okay, now let me give you this phone number. For questions, call 1-888-675-1461. Okay, and that's for the U.S. It continues. Transportation includes any land, water, or air conveyance required to transport you during an emergency evacuation. This transportation includes, but is not limited to, commercial air ambulances, land ambulances, and private motor vehicles. So, as I mentioned to you previously, when we went to Europe last year, I purchased emergency medical insurance through Berkshire Hathaway. And it cost me like $550. Well, that's basically the same coverage that I have under the Chase Sapphire Reserve. The limits are about the same. All of this is probably similar across most premium travel credit cards. So when you start to look at it and you think about what the average person will have to deal with, this is pretty much gonna cover it. Now, why is this important to even talk about? Well, because if you're traveling abroad for a few days or a few weeks and you get terribly ill where you need to be evacuated, you've got some benefits here because you are paying $795 for a Chase Sapphire Reserve travel credit card. It's a premium travel credit card, similar to Amex, Platinum, and other travel credit cards. Bilt even has protections under their MasterCard. Wells Fargo issues the Bilt MasterCard. I have that card. That's why I'm talking about that card. I'm talking about cards I have and the benefits that go. My wife has the Amex Platinum. So I'm talking about that because as her spouse, there's certain benefits that would extend to me and likewise to my wife. So this is another benefit under your credit card that I want you to know about. For emergency transportation to the bedside. So your mother wants to come see you. Your child wants to come see you. Here's what it says here. If you are hospitalized for more than 8 days, the benefit administrator can arrange to bring a relative or friend to your bedside by paying the cost of any economy class round trip ticket. Okay? So these are benefits under your premium travel credit cards. You need to check which credit card you have and see which benefits you have. But this is some of the benefits of why you pay what you pay for a premium travel credit card. Now, here's what it says. You are also eligible to receive reimbursement for the cost of an economy airfare ticket if your original tickets cannot be used for your return flight. That's another benefit. So you get sick, you're in the hospital, and you can't use the ticket on the date because you're going to be evacuated emergency-wise. So that ticket becomes void. So here's what you have to do. It says, in addition, you're eligible to receive reimbursement for the cost of an economy airfare ticket to return an accompanying minor to his or her resident when applicable. So you're traveling with your child, a teenager or so, and the ticket gets voided because you're missing the date or you got to come home early. They're going to pay for your young child to come with you. It says, in exchange for this service, any unused return tickets must be turned over to the benefit administrator when possible, or the benefit administrator must be reimbursed for the amount equivalent to the value of the unused tickets. So you would just turn those tickets over to Chase, and then Chase would give it to airline, and the airline would probably reimburse Chase for it. They probably got some deal worked out. Now, We already talked about the repatriation of remains, only $1,000. Now, we talked about the conditions of the emergency evacuation, that it has to fall within a certain time period, 5 days, can't be less than 5 days or more than 60 days. And so I say, hopefully you can, don't get ill to where you need to be evacuated before the 6th day. But the policy benefits say 5 days to 60 days. So within that time frame. So for those of us doing the slow travel, while we're gone longer than this may not apply to us, right? Unless something happens within this time frame, we might be able to claim something. If something happens within the 5 to 60 days, then we may have triggered a potential claim that we can file, okay? And hey, if they say no, they say no, but file the claim within that time period. It says here, similar to the one we read earlier, this trip must be in excess of 100 miles from the eligible person's residence. It also says it does not apply to the extent that trade or economic sanctions or other laws or regulations prohibit the provision of the insurance, including but not limited to the payment of claims. So more than not, if you're not in a country, I'm going to just read the countries because they list the countries here. Okay, I'll read the countries in a minute. I'm going to follow their the way they have it laid out here. What's not covered? It does not apply for any expenses already included in the cost of the scheduled trip on which the illness or injury occurs. Okay. It doesn't apply to anything which is non-emergency in nature. For services, supplies, or charges rendered by a member of the eligible person's immediate family. So if you're on a cruise and you get sick, but they offer some type of, that comes with your ticket or whatnot, they're not going to pay. They're going to make the cruise line pay. Maybe the cruise ship will evacuate you to the nearest port or whatever. Whatever the situation is, they just want you to know that if there's coverage by another party and you don't have to pay for it, it's a condition of your trip or the airline ticket or the cruise line ticket or the train ticket. And it's included because you paid for this ticket, and this is one of the benefits of your train ticket, right? They're not going to pay for that. They're not going to pay if it's not an emergency. In other words, you're going to this country to get some type of medical coverage and then something happens. They're not paying for that. They're not going to cover services, supplies, or charges rendered by a member of the eligible person's immediate family. So your own family saying, hey, I can go down here and get this and this and this and doctor you and then try and charge Chase, they're not going to pay that. They're not going to pay for services not prescribed by or performed by or upon the direction of a hospital, physician, or dentist. Anything not medically necessary as determined by the company. So that's Chase and their administrator. Anything which are experimental or investigative in nature. They're not going to pay for that. They're not going to pay for any illness or bodily injury which occurs in the course of employment, if benefits or compensation is available in whole or in part. Okay, so you need to file your claim there, because if you're working and you don't have work comp, they may pick it up. Because as I mentioned earlier, in some cases, you've got some insurance coverages here, some AD&D, some emergency medical. So if it triggers, you're maybe working somewhere out of country for 30 days or 45 days, but you're a contractor, what have you. Maybe you're singing on a cruise ship or whatever, and I don't know. You'd have to be, it says here, where you have no compensation, right, for any illness or bodily injury which occurs in the course of employment, if benefits or compensation is available. So maybe as a contractor, some kind of way or other, and you have this card and you booked your travel with it or pay any portion of it with it, maybe you have a situation where, you have to pay some of your fare and you use your credit card. I would just file a claim if something happens. It says here, they're not going to pay to the extent benefits are provided by any governmental agency unit except Medicare. So basically, if Medicare, if you file and Medicare says, okay, we'll pay some of this, then they'll be they will reimburse Medicare, but they're not going to reimburse anybody else. So they're not going to pay for any illness or injury suffered due to self-inflicted harm, pregnancy, childbirth, mental health care, alcoholism or substance abuse, war, military duty, civil disorder, air travel except as a passenger on a licensed aircraft operated by an airline or air charter company, routine physical examinations, hearing aids, eyeglasses, contact lenses, or routine dental care, including dentures and false teeth, attempted suicide while sane, hernia, unless it results from a covered accident, elective abortion, participation in a felonious act or attempted threat, skydiving, scuba, skiing or deep sea diving, hang gliding, parachuting, and contests of speed. So you're going on this exotic vacation, you're hang gliding, you don't have any emergency travel protection, okay? You're going deep sea diving, you don't have no emergency medical protection. You're parachuting, you don't have any emergency protection. You're gliding, you're going to one of them high mountains, in the Andes or wherever, and they hang glide. You don't have any protection. And why I'm saying this is because a lot of, not just young people, but a lot of people reach a certain age, like my age, and they say, well, okay, well, I've never hang glided before. I'll take my chances. Well, they're just letting you know you can do that, but they're not going to pay for any emergency medical evacuation if something should happen in the event of a catastrophic injury. And who knows, if something worse happens and you were involved in this type of activity, whether or not they may or may not pay. So now here are the countries, and these will change. So you have to go to the Department of State for the latest. But here's what's listed here. For care received in Afghanistan, Burma, El Salvador, Iran, Iraq, Kampuchea. I got to look that one up. I don't know where that is. Laos, Lebanon, Nicaragua, North Korea, Yemen, Vietnam, and any other countries which may be determined by the U.S. government from time to time to be unsafe for travel. Vietnam was a shocker to me, but speaking to a lot of people that have traveled through there, apparently there's a reason why Chase has it on here, and it must be from the Department of State. Okay. Here's the next one. What they're not going to cover for travel for the purposes of obtaining medical treatment, which we mentioned earlier. And of course, they finish again with trips less than 5 days or exceeding 60 days. Now, how you file your claim, I gave you the phone number. There's a benefit administrator. Call the benefit administrator immediately if you have an accident, illness, or any other type of loss. Answer a few questions so the benefit administrator can send you the right claim form and let you know what other documentation is needed to file your claim. Now, this part is important. Return the completed and signed claim form and requested documentation to the benefit administrator within 180 days of the occurrence. And they have that in bold letters. So you got 6 months to file this claim. Okay. So, and it tells you the documentation. You basically know everything you're going to need to turn in, everything related to this. If you bought, any kind of medicine, had to pay for transportation, physician's letter, keep all the receipts. And a lot of times traveling abroad, you may have to pay for it up front and use that credit card. Use your Chase Sapphire Reserve to pay for it. So they'll already have a record of the hospital, the payment, where you go get the medicines. They'll have a list of all of that already, and they'll have the dates there. So you'll just need to contact the benefit administrator, 1-888-675-1461. Okay, and that's for if you're in the U.S., but that's where I would call to initiate my claim. All right, so, and there's some other things here that talks about the repatriation of remains in the event of an untimely death, credit card statement, the travel itinerary, copy of a death certificate, receipts for embalming, cremation, and coffin and transportation. Now, unfortunately, as we get a little older, these are things that can occur. And what happens is I did some research here to be able to let you know how much repatriation costs are. And when I went to check a couple different places, it says here, how much do airlines charge for the repatriation of a body? While expenses can vary widely based on the factors mentioned above, here are typical ranges. U.S. domestic funeral shipping, $1,500 to $5,000. International flights, $4,000 to $15,000 or more. So probably on a main route like Bangkok to LA or something like that, or Tokyo to Chicago, those main routes may not be as much because they got several flights going every day. But of course, it will depend. But it could be from $4,000 to $15,000, and Chase is only paying $1,000. So the contingency plan here is you're gonna have to have some room on your credit card if you want your remains to be repatriated to the United States. Now, and I'm talking about this because probably not going to hear it anywhere else. In order for the body to be repatriated back to the United States, the State Department as well as the CDC has some requirements, and it depends whether the body's been embalmed, cremated, what the person died from. So you need to report the death of a U.S. citizen to the embassy or the consulate for the country that you're in. And then you work through them for the repatriation of the body back to the United States. So you can go to the U.S. Consulate General or the U.S. Embassy and Consulate, and they will tell you what to do if a U.S. citizen dies abroad. And they'll explain to you, and they will assist with the return of remains to the U.S. or for local burial. Now, here's why this is important. Because it's life. And unfortunately, these are the things that obviously will occur to some of us through natural causes or through some type of accidental death or dismemberment. So in these cases, you need to be able to have this talk with your spouse and your family. I've had this talk with my wife, and I think at first she thought I was just joking, but I was like, no, if something happens to me and I die abroad, leave me in the country that I died in. There's no need to ship me back to the U.S. If I died here in Bangkok, Thailand, have my remains cremated and buried, which one is cheaper, and I'm dead, you know. My thought is, my God knows where I'm at, and he'll do to me what is appropriate in his eyes, and I'll take that, right? Because shipping my body back, paying $15,000 to ship me back, that's an unnecessary expense and burden I don't want to put on my wife. Now, if the particularly credit card you have says, oh no, we do this, there's no problem, or they decide they just want to cover it under the other portions of the policy, right? For instance, if they said, oh, you've triggered the claim under the $1 million, we will ship the body back. They may even waive the costs. They may just do it because of whatever the facts are. So those are some of the details under travel accident insurance. For the most part, the emergency evacuation is going to be something that some of us will need up to $100,000. And as long as you're not hang gliding and snorkeling and you end up in the hospital because of that, then for just coming, being tourists, visiting for, from 5 to 60 days, you're going to trigger coverage. And most of your costs should be covered under the benefits and terms and conditions that we just talked about. Now, let's quickly talk about emergency medical and dental. This is a big one. Emergency medical and dental coverage provides reimbursement for emergency treatment if you become sick or accidentally injured while traveling on a covered trip up to $2,500 and is subject to a $50 deductible. The only reason I can think of why they would have a deductible here, because the other ones do not have a deductible. Not even AD&D has a deductible, right? The life insurance basically and dismemberment, it doesn't have a deductible. This one here is a coverage that probably gets used quite a bit. And so with having a deductible, my experience would tell me that when you pay that deductible, particularly if you pay it with your credit card to that hospital should be able to take credit cards, hopefully, because that hospital should be accredited. Now, unless you're in some little village off the way that has a doctor, but you're going to have to get a written receipt. But they want to make sure you are where you say you are. You're not in a country that they cannot extend this coverage to by law based on the United States government. So once again, we talk about our personal situations and we talk about insurance. And because insurance is so, it's one of those things like that fable. And this is the way it was explained to me over 30 years ago. The insurance is the slipper. Your foot is you and your life and your problem, your situation. You have to fit in there before they pay. So it's narrow, right? They may give you broad coverages, but when it gets time for them to pay, the scope narrows based on the fact pattern, based on the injuries, based on how you bought your plane ticket, how you paid for your hotel. So that's why you want these benefits under this travel credit card. Now, some people say, well, I got health and medical insurance. If it's through your job and they cover you no matter where you go in the world, great. Then you got this premium travel credit card for any gaps, right? It can serve as an excess because you're going to file your claim with them too, right? So your employer may cover you through the group insurance for anything. You may be able to go scuba dive and maybe they're taking you on the trip. All y'all are meeting in Spain and and you're going to be diving off the coast or whatever, or you're meeting in Bali, and you're in one of the Gili Islands, and you're snorkeling and going down looking at a couple sunken ship vessels, and something happens, right? You get an embolism, and now you got to be evacuated to that international hospital in Bali, and you're there, right, for more than 8 days, and you're racking up a bill, and eventually you're going to need a surgery that they're not going to be able to do there because they don't specialize in it. So now you got to be evacuated to Jakarta, or you got to be evacuated to KL, Kuala Lumpur, or you got to be evacuated to the United States. Because they say the nearest facility that can maybe do it. And I think you may even have a choice. You have to talk to the benefit administrator, but you may want to come back to the US. Or they may say, no, they've got world-class surgeons there, and that's what we'll pay for. We're not going to pay to repay, to have you sent all the way back to the US when there's somebody that's US trained that can do it. So you'll have to work that out with them, because you want to work it out with them to make sure they pay, right? Now, under the emergency medical and dental, if you're hospitalized as a result of a covered accident or sickness during your covered trip and your attending physician determines that you should recover in a hotel immediately after your release from the hospital before returning home, you may be eligible for an additional benefit of $75 per day for up to a maximum of 5 days toward the cost of a hotel room. This is another benefit. This is not talked about, so I won't talking to you about it here. Insurance is something that most people are interested in. I just happen to be a nerd in this regard, and insurance defense is the thing I'm a nerd about. So you have this embolism, and you're not diving. You're just walking around sightseeing, and all of a sudden you have this emergency medical situation. You go to a hospital. You're in the hospital for the period of time you're in the hospital. When you get out, the doctor says you need to recover before you travel. Well, your benefit under the policy will cover you for 5 days, $75 per day. Now, I can just tell you, you can find a decent hotel above the budget hotels. We're talking about a decent hotel for $75 a day. You can stay at the Hyatt Sukhumvit 24 here in Bangkok for $75 a day or less. So you get 5 days to get your wits about you, to get stronger, healthier, to rest, sleep, 3-4 days. And then as you're working with the benefit administrator, it gives you some time. So I would take my maximum 5 days and feel healthy enough to make the trip. Okay. And here's, once again, why you need this card for you personally in your name. You are eligible if your name is embossed on an eligible card issued in the United States, and you charge all or portion of a covered trip to your credit card account and or rewards program associated with your account. So it looks like if you got some points with Chase, you can use those to purchase your ticket. Eligible person means you, your spouse/domestic partner, and your legally dependent children under the age of 19 and or the age of 26 if enrolled as a full-time student at an accredited university. So you're traveling with the 2 kids. One's 18, 19, one's 25. It says under the age of 26, so I'm gonna say 25. And under the age of 19, so I'm gonna say 18. So let's take an 18-year-old and that college kid that's up to 25 years old, okay? So you, your wife, and those 2 kids will be covered. So if the kids get injured, they're just walking up the stairs, going in Kuala Lumpur, they go into Batu Caves or something, and they got to climb all those stairs, and somebody falls and breaks a leg, but the leg is broken in such a way in which they need to be evacuated to the U.S. where they're going to get pins and plates and screws and all of that. You want to get them back home and get the whole family back home, because being on the road with all that's going to be too much. So they would be covered. What's covered? What medical expenses are covered? Your covered medical expenses for emergency treatment include necessary services and supplies recommended by your attending physician and received during the course of your covered trip. These include the services of a legally qualified physician, surgeon, graduate nurse, dentist, or osteopath, charges for hospital confinement and use of operating rooms, charges for anesthetics, including administration, x-ray examinations or treatments, and laboratory tests, ambulance services, drugs, medicine, and therapeutic services and supplies. Then it adds this caveat: this benefit is payable on an excess basis over and above any amount due from any other valid or collectible insurance or any other form of reimbursement payable to those responsible for the loss. So if somebody caused a loss and you're able to pursue a claim against them, or your medical insurance covers you worldwide and covers the kids, so they're just saying we're going to be excess on top of them. Here's the last part we need to cover. Please pay attention to these conditions of the emergency evacuation and transportation benefit. Okay, so this covers both. Your trip must be arranged by a travel agency. Okay, did you hear that? Your trip must be arranged by a travel agency. Now, I don't know why they said that. I went down and read the rest of their conditions here. And it basically says here that a covered trip are arrangements that are made by a commercial licensed travel establishment consisting of travel agencies and or common carrier organizations for which the expense has been charged to your eligible account. So your credit card. Eligible or common carrier organizations is any airline that you purchase a ticket from. Okay, so not just travel agencies. Okay, so that's one of the things that they said, that they go down later when they describe a common carrier. It's not just travel agents. If you purchase your plane tickets yourself, you're going to have coverage. Okay. And the rest is very basic in how you file a claim. And you can go to chase.com and look under your benefits to find this information out. So there you have it. Travel accident insurance, emergency medical evacuation, emergency medical treatment. Okay, those are the benefits. Check your policy, call Chase. You can watch this again and make sure that as you travel, right, 100 miles from your house, it doesn't kick in until after 5 days. Purchase it with the right premium travel credit card, so you have these benefits. That's why you're paying. Even if you got Chase Sapphire Preferred at $95, check and see what it covers. But those of you with Amex Platinum, those of you like myself with the Chase Sapphire Reserve, these are some of the things that don't come up when they're talking points and miles and 4 times on points and 4 times on this or that. No one talks about this. And if they do, they don't do kind of the deep dive that we did. And that's okay. That's why we're here at Big Road Travels. And if you don't remember anything else, if you have a premium travel credit card, file your claim. If you're going to go scuba diving, purchase some additional insurance. But I can tell you, for those of us slow travel outside of the country more than 60 days at a time, if something happens within the first 60 days, I would file my claim. And maybe they'll pay you a portion, right? Because they may not know you're going to be gone longer than 60 days. So file your claim, right? Then if you're on your way back, right, and something happens to you right before you get back, file your claim. Just file your claim, right? Because you're on your way back. You may trigger some coverage with that purchase ticket, and you're on your way back. So you never know. Because really the purpose is that you're traveling. And if something happens to you while traveling or on your way to go get your flight, they're offering you these benefits under your travel credit card. Why? Is it because they love us? No. Here's why. Because when we use their credit card, they're getting fees from every time we swipe that card. They're charging the merchants every time we swipe that card. And so the more we swipe, the more we trigger coverage and benefits. Another reason why I say use the same card. It's getting dark behind me, so I'm trying to keep some light on, and my tablet is running out of juice here. And I'm going to end with this. You leave an audit trail, right? So how are they going to fight you when you pay for your airline ticket with this? You paid for your hotel with this, and this is the premium credit card, right? Could be any card, but your Chase Sapphire Reserve in my case. You're paying for your trip with that card. So you've got the documentation. You go to the hospital, pay for it with that card, right? You got to buy some medicine, some crutches, pay for it with that card. And they will have a record already. File any police report with the hotel or injury, file reports, get documentation, right? Here's an old saying they taught us years ago when it came to insurance defense work. If it isn't written, it didn't happen. So it's got to be down and documented. If it isn't written, it didn't happen. Now, they're not going to insure you if you're trying to go to Afghanistan. You ain't going to have no travel protection on this Chase Sapphire Reserve. So you've got to make sure that you're not traveling too far out of the way. Like for emergency, they got to be able to get to you. And if they can't get to you, like you out in the jungle, you're probably not going to have no coverage. So you would have to look at buying something that would apply. And I can just tell you, you can check with all these people doing slow travel or have moved to different countries. They're having a hard time finding insurance. There's no company that really does everything a slow traveler will need. So now from 5 to 60 days, you're going to have coverage. So just make sure your trip is within that time period. Make sure you're not in the middle of the jungle in some of these countries that they say there's no coverage for, that the State Department says do not travel to, right? So that you don't void all your policies, no matter where they are, because they may not be able to pay. That's one of the conditions. They may not be able to pay it. You may not even have any problems with them other than they're not allowed by law to pay the claim. So you don't want to do that to your spouse, your dependents. Have enough room on your credit card to be able to pay for your injuries, whether there's coverage or not. But file your claim if you fall within this 5 to 60 days. For those of us outside of that, there's really no health insurance other than being self-insured. Now, if you're going to move to a different country, then you should look to purchase whatever that country has set up for health insurance, right? Because now you've got that extended visa. You're allowed to purchase the insurances. That's a different ballgame. But we're talking about travel, emergencies for more than 5 days and less than 60 days. The benefits of protection that you get, which is going to apply to probably 99% of Americans who travel. Only 50% of Americans have a passport, and probably only 30% or 20% of those are traveling, right? So it's going to apply to a nice number, but it's not going to be everybody. It's only going to be a certain percentage of folks that it's going to be applicable to. And for those folks, I want you to file your claims. Okay, that's why we pay $7.95 for this Chase Sapphire Reserve. Okay, something happened to you, you're in the hospital more than 8 days, you can have a family member or a friend fly over, economy round trip. When you get out of the hospital, whether it's 30, 60 days, whatever the number is, you can go to the hotel for 5 days. and rest up. You get $75 a day for that. These are benefits you need to know about. And even if you didn't know, file a claim within 6 months, 180 days. Just file a claim. And they'll tell you no. And then you can pursue it from there. You may have to seek some legal help, but file your claim. Okay? So this is Big Bro Travels. Getting into the minutia. If you need legal help, get it. If you need a doctor, get it, right? Get all the help you may need. And if you get on a trip and you get stressed out, go get whatever help you can get the medicine you need. You got a travel credit card, leave some room on that card, right? If you got a $20,000 limit on your Chase Sapphire Reserve and you didn't spend $5,000 or $10,000 on your trip, that other $10,000 got to be for emergency medical. Okay. Don't max out your credit cards and be trying to travel abroad. That's a no-go. Okay, you're gonna need $10,000 or $15,000 in your emergency credit card fund. You don't have to have it in cash, but you gotta have it on this credit card because they're gonna take credit cards and you're not gonna have no cash with you to that extent. So, Big Road Travels. Okay, take care. See you on the next video, but we had to get into this. Okay, be safe, particularly on those roads in the United States. Okay, watch my video on that travel accident insurance for rental cars, and that'll help you there. Take care.